Hello, it's Monday, the 31st of January, and welcome to your 5-minute briefs from Seoul. I'm your host, Hee-Jin Koo. In our final briefing of the month, we'll take a look at rising concerns over surging oil prices amid heightened tensions between Russia and Ukraine, which may hamper recovery efforts in a country that is heavily dependent on energy imports. The Bank of Korea reported Asia's fourth largest economy posted its fastest growth in 11 years in 2021. While the BOK reported Asia's fourth largest economy posted its fastest growth in 11 years in 2021, we'll explore the reason behind the IMF's downward adjustment for its 2022 outlook for South Korea. Plus, we'll update you with LG and GM expanding their partnership in EV batteries, as well as reasons why health-conscious South Korean consumers are turning to nuts as a nutritious food option. Let's begin our 5-minute roundup. South Korea may face its biggest challenge on the road to economic recovery amid skyrocketing energy prices on the back of escalating tensions between Ukraine and Russia. Industry insiders, as well as government officials in the energy, finance, trade, and foreign affairs ministries, held back-to-back meetings to discuss countermeasures to potential disruptions in global energy supply chains that threaten to throw a wrench in its economic recovery. South Korea is particularly vulnerable to fluctuations in energy costs as it relies heavily on imports of crude oil and liquefied natural gas, or LNG. The key Brent crude hit a 7-year high last week, topping $90 a barrel amid market jitters over tight worldwide supplies, with expectations the U.S. Federal Reserve will soon tighten monetary policy. While the short-term impact will likely be minimal, prolonged tensions could have knock-on effects on global supply chains. Hyundai Research Institute estimated that a hypothetical surge in per-barrel prices to $100 may shave 0.3 percentage point from the nation's economic growth outlook and boost inflation by 1.1 percentage points. The study, released back in October, added that a spike will also diminish the country's current account surplus by some $30.5 billion. And exacerbating concerns is the nation's trade deficit, a stark contrast following last year's export-fueled economic recovery. South Korea posted a record-high trade deficit of $4.89 billion in January since 1966, when the nation began compiling trade data. The overall deficit increased as export growth stood at a mere 15.2%, while import growth reached as high as 35.5%. It's the first time in 14 years since the global financial crisis of 2008 that South Korea saw a trade deficit for 2 straight months. Meanwhile, the South Korea Central Bank said the nation's economy grew 4% last year to post its largest growth in 11 years. According to tentative data by the Bank of Korea, the country's real gross domestic product grew 4% in 2021 from a year earlier. The figure matches the BOK's earlier estimates and marks the highest growth since 2010, when the economy expanded 6.8%. Analysts attributed the growth to a base effect rebound following the 2020 contraction of 0.9% due to a fallout triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. A resilient global demand for South Korean goods, including those for semiconductors and electronics, as well as stable private consumption, attributed to the recovery, with each growing 3.6% and 9.7% on year, respectively. The fourth quarter saw its GDP expand a seasonally adjusted 1.1% on quarter, accelerating from a rise of 0.3% in the previous quarter. Still, the road ahead is strewn with hazards as the International Monetary Fund marked down its economic forecast for South Korea for this year, citing the rampant spread of the highly contagious Omicron variant and lower growth outlooks for Seoul's major trade partners. The IMF projected South Korea will grow 3% in 2022, down by 0.3 percentage point from its earlier forecast in October. The International Debt Management Agency's latest outlook is 0.1 of a percentage point lower than the government's projection, but is equivalent to those from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Bank of Korea, and the average forecast from major investment banks. South Korea's Ministry of Economy and Finance said the revision is moderate compared to the 1.2 percentage points and 0.8 percentage point cuts for the US and China, respectively, citing the nation's still robust current account and consumption levels and its expansionary fiscal policies. The IMF, meanwhile, raised its 2023 outlook for the nation to 2.9%, up by 0.9 percentage point from October. Turning now to the latest update in electric vehicles and batteries, LG Energy Solution, the world's second largest EV battery manufacturer, and automobile giant General Motors announced last week a $2.6 billion project to build an electric vehicle battery plant in Lansing, Michigan. The two firms said they will build their third plant in their joint venture Ultium Cells in the state capital by the second half of 2024. This comes amid a slew of joint industry partnerships in the EV sector, including those between Mercedes-Benz and Prologium to integrate solid-state battery technology into a range of passenger vehicles. Panasonic and Toyota have also launched an industrial academic collaborative research program related to battery resources and recycling. LG Energy Solution and GM's first two factories are under construction in the states of Ohio and Tennessee, both aiming at an annual production capacity of over 35 gigawatt hours. The latest factory will likely launch mass production in early 2025, with its annual production capacity targeted to expand to 50 gigawatt hours, enough to make around 700,000 EVs. LG Energy Solution is seeking to expand its share in the North American market, which is forecast to expand more than 6 times to 286 gigawatt hours in 2025 from just 46 in 2021. And finally, in the consumer food industry, South Koreans are becoming increasingly focused on the quality of life, their health and dietary regimes amid a persistent pandemic and an ever-growing elderly population. This has led to an increase in demand for healthier food options, with imports of nuts such as walnuts and almonds, rich in fiber, protein, and healthy fats, surging 43% in 2021 compared to 2015. Demand for pecans, sometimes locally referred to as American walnuts in particular, are on the rise, emerging as a major nut-bearing tree in South Korea. Shipments of U.S. pecans to South Korea are maintaining a steady growth despite pandemic issues, marking the highest volume of imports in the past decade. According to Korea Animal, Plant and Fisheries Quarantine and Inspection Agency, or Korea QIA, the nation imported some 3.5 million pounds of US pecans in 2021, jumping by nearly 50% from the previous year. And the trend will likely continue amid a protracted pandemic and as more people opt for leaner dietary options, with many health-conscious consumers incorporating vegan meals as part of their regimen. That wraps it up for this episode of 5 Minute Briefs from Seoul. This has been Hee-Jun Koo for KBSI. Have a good day.